welcome back to the channel. I am wearing pink. I have my lovely rom-com blanket that I got for Christmas from my roommate because it is love month, which is one of my favorite months of the year. I freaking love February for so many reasons. Everything is pink. It's an excuse to watch every lovey-dovey rom-com under the sun. You get lots of candy. I do lots of self-care in February, and it's like almost spring. So yeah, I just love February. Such a good month. Definitely one of the best months of the year. Hence why I have pink on and why the vibes are all fun and cutesy. So happy love month, happy February. I did just get my wisdom teeth out like less than a week ago. So this is probably the most I've talked in a while. Still a little swollen, and if it looks like I can't move my mouth properly, that would be why. But we're in full recovery. Surgery went well, very happy, still got my wisdom. Yeah, so for today's video I thought it would be fun to do 14 romance movies that I think you should watch in the month of February. Some of these are underground and some of them are like the most popular romance movies ever, but I felt the need to add them into this list. So I'm giving you 14, and of course there's 5 honorable mentions because every movie / TV show video that I've ever made, there's always been honorable mentions because I can't ever keep to the number list that I decide. Okay, so this is a very carefully curated list. And we're going to talk about the genre of romance first before I get into the list because it definitely contributed, like the definition of romance in my head definitely contributed to this list, obviously. So, romance films, which rom-com is under the category of romance films. A romance film, I have beef, right? Because like recently I've been seeing publications and like accounts and things saying something is a romance movie, and I'm like, that is not a romance movie. Like, for example, something categorized Wicked as a romance movie, and in my definition of romance, Wicked is not one. Like, just because there's a romantic element in a movie does not make it a romance film. The entire plot needs to be revolving around a romantic relationship for it to be a romance film. I'm gonna go on a tangent, so I'm gonna stop talking now. But like every movie ever pretty much has a romantic element in it because that is part of life. Like pretty much every movie ever. I can't really think of one right now that doesn't have it at all. So then if you're using that definition, everything is a romance film. My definition of romance film, I have very specific expectations for the theme of the movie, the lessons learned, the climax, the rising action, the resolution has to be about a romantic relationship. Like, that has to be the whole point of the movie. If I sit down and say I want to watch a romance movie, it better be the main point because I love romance films. And rom-coms are obviously included in the category of romance, as well as like romantic dramas, you name it. But this list has some rom-coms on it and has some more like what I would call romance dramas in them. But I also am going for a very specific vibe on this list, and I'll talk a lot about the vibe of the list and why like some of the honorable mentions didn't make this list is because they didn't fit the vibe that I was going for in my head. So you might have a different vibe. You might have a different definition of romance, but this is my channel, my rules. So we're using my definition of romance, and my definition is also correct. Anyway, that's my tangent for the day. So this list is a little mix of everything, but the vibe I was going for was like literally Valentine's Day. So like lovey-dovey, super cute and gooey, makes you feel all warm inside. And you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna sit down and watch a cute little romantic movie, and then it's like the kind of movie where you can have your rom-com blanket with you, right? So this list has a little bit of everything, but it is carefully curated, and it's 14 romance films that I think you should watch in the month of February. And now we can actually get into the part of the video that you care about instead of me talking for hours and hours and hours. Okay, this is also in no specific order. So the first movie on this list is in my 4 favorite movies of all time. It's my 4th favorite, and it's Love, Rosie. This is definitely in the romantic drama category. This is probably also like the most, like, I don't want to say deep because romance movies are deep. They all are. Yeah, I could go on a tangent about that too. This one's probably the most, I guess deep would be the right word, or like makes you feel existential. I don't know, but it's probably like the most serious movie on this list, I would say. Love Rosie, phenomenal film if you haven't seen it. My favorite trope in like all of literature and all of everything is childhood best friends to lovers, and this movie is that. Like, if there is a movie about childhood best friends to lovers, it's Love Rosie. It's got Sam Claflin and Lily Collins, and it is an incredible, like, decade-spanning film just about the love of friendship and then also romantic love. It's really beautiful. The book is also really good. I remember like turning this movie on thinking it was gonna be this like super just cute throwaway cheesy romance movie, and it changed my life, and now it's my 4th favorite film of all time. So go watch it. It's so good. It makes me tear up every time I watch it. It's just phenomenal film. Next is The Blueprint. The Blueprint. This movie changed me as a human. This movie's also the blueprint. Like, it is the 2010s romantic movie. Like, if there is a 2010s decade rom-com, it is this movie, and it is To All the Boys I've Loved Before. If you know, you freaking know. This movie is so phenomenal. And I put the To All the Boys trilogy because I was like, I don't want like to, you know, the 3 movies to take up 3 spots. So the To All the Boys trilogy. The first one, though, I could write novels. Every time I watch this movie, I feel the exact same way about it as I did when I watched it the first time. I have talked about this movie probably countless times on this channel. I think it is one of the best romantic movies ever made. I think it's perfection. 5 stars. The books are so good. This movie is so aesthetically pleasing. It has a extremely relatable main character. I remember when this movie came out, I was also 16, was just starting to drive. I think it came out like the first week or something of my junior year. I can't really remember. But I was the same age as Lauren Jean, was petrified to drive by myself, and I was like, she is me. Like, she absolutely slays. It has the OG internet boyfriend, which is Noah Centineo, in it. It is perfection. This movie is perfection. If you have not seen the To All the Boys trilogy, please watch them. I have been yearning to watch these movies for like weeks, but I watch them every Valentine's Day, and I'm like, I have to wait because it's gonna hit so much more when it's closer to Valentine's Day. So if any of these movies are on your list, it needs to be the To All the Boys trilogy. They're phenomenal. Jenny Han, oh, she's incredible. Next is like what I would kind of consider underground. Like, I feel like a lot of people know about this movie, but not a lot of people know about this movie, and it is Life as We Know It. I am a sucker for Life as We Know It. I think it is such a good, cute little rom-com. It has Josh Duhamel, and I will watch anything that he's in. And it has Katherine Heigl. And essentially, they are, like, Josh Duhamel's best friend is married to Katherine Heigl's best friend. And something really tragic happens at the beginning that essentially leads to Katherine Heigl and Josh Duhamel's character having to like take care of their best friend's kid, and then of course, you know, because it's a rom-com, they fall in love, and it is just so cute. It's honestly also really deep. Like, I feel like they, like, thematically they kind of get there, and I am like, okay, like, I kind of love this. Next is also one of my favorite movies of all time. It's in my top 15, and it is My Best Friend's Wedding with Julia Roberts and Dermot Mulroney. And essentially the movie opens with, first of all, this like amazing opening scene, and Julia Roberts' character, I think she's like a food critic or something, and she's best friends with Dermot Mulroney's character, and they essentially made a pact that they would get married if they're not married by the time they're whatever, I can't remember what the age is, but they like made a, like, essentially a promise that they get married. But she finds out that he is getting married to Cameron Diaz, and the movie is basically, you know, revolving around her trying to, she like finds out like internally that she loves him, and she's trying to like win him back kind of, and like ruin the wedding. And I'm not gonna spoil the end, but it is just 90s bliss. It's so good. And yeah, it's like kind of a messy plot and I'm glad it ends the way it does, because I'm like, girl, but I just eat it up. I just think it's so fun. I think it's such a good movie. Okay, the next one, of course I had to put a 2000s rom-com on here because 2000s rom-coms, they were the era. They were the absolute era. So this movie I grew up on. And if we're talking, you know, in the category of like iconic 2000s rom-com, like the golden era, this is my favorite out of those. And it's 13 Going on 30. This one also has my favorite trope in it, obviously, childhood best friends to lovers. And I think, first of all, if you haven't seen this movie, what are you doing? But this movie is a cultural phenomenon for sure. People adore it. And I love that it explores romance, but it also heavily focuses on her, the main character of Jennifer Garner, like really just kind of finding herself and discovering a lot about herself. I love that too. I love when a romance film obviously revolves around romance, but you also get like a little hint of like a deep connection to self, which we find in this movie. Iconic fashion, iconic freaking soundtrack. I'm obsessed with it. She also has like the dream job. Like, I wanted to be a big time magazine editor too when I was watching this movie as an 8-year-old. Like, I was like, she has the life. I want her life. So yes, I love Jenna Rank. Next one is a little bit of a newer movie, and ever since I've seen it, I just like, every time I watch it, I feel so comforted, and it's Love at First Sight, also known as what I think should be called Love at First Flight. But this movie stars Haley Lu Richardson and Ben Hardy, and it takes place, starts in an airport, and they essentially meet and they're on the same flight, and the rest is history. It's so good. It's, I don't know, there's just something about it. There is just something about it that every time I watch it, I'm like kicking my feet, having a good little time on the couch. And it's also really wholesome. Like, it's a very wholesome movie that makes you feel like you're getting a big hug. It's very comforting. Yeah, I just think it's a well done little Netflix rom-com. I like it a lot. This next one is the blueprint for 2000s rom-coms. I'm pretty sure this movie is universally beloved. I've never heard anyone say they don't like this movie, and it is How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Perfection, first of all. Just watched this while I was down bad after my surgery, and I was like, this movie is so good. I mean, rewatched it. I've seen it dozens of times, but I did a recent rewatch. I was like, this is so good. Perfect cast. I also think, I was telling my mom when we were watching this, I was like, she has, you know, what a lot of people, at least in my perspective growing up, like the ideal job, right? Like, journalist in the city. He like works in sports, right? He's like a sports agent. I don't know. He's sports something, sports marketing. I don't know. Just sports. Like, they have like the ideal occupations for a lot of people, right? And so like you're kind of already relating to these characters and wanting to be like them, and you get to like watch this, like, I don't know. It's just great. It's just so good. And this movie is just iconic. And if you are gonna watch it in any month, it should be February. Okay, next up is also, okay, I take it back. Love, Rosie is probably not the most serious, deep movie on this list. It's this movie, and it is Before Sunrise, also known as the Before trilogy. And Before Sunrise actually just celebrated its 30-year anniversary here in the past few days, so congrats to that. I remember watching this and being like, oh my god, this is crazy. Did my life just change? Like, suddenly all of my trips are not going to revolve around the fact that this story needs to happen in my life. So this movie, a guy and a girl meet on a train abroad. Well, it's abroad for Ethan Hawke's character, and hers too, I guess, technically, because I don't think she's in her, I think she's traveling as well. But they meet on a train in Europe, and the whole movie, what I love so much about this movie is there's really not a ton of cuts, so you're kind of watching them like go through the night in like what is their real time. And they're just, I mean, like, it's all dialogue. They're just walking around the city talking, and it's so cute. I'm obsessed with it. And then there's 2 more movies after Before Sunrise, of course, but Before Sunrise is definitely my favorite of the 3. Okay, the next one is a Nicholas Sparks movie, because if you're gonna do a Valentine's Day, you know, themed video, you have to have Nicholas Sparks on there, obviously. I was thinking about putting The Notebook, because obviously it's The Notebook. But then I was like, everyone already knows about The Notebook. Everyone knows that it's a good movie. So then I ultimately decided to put what I would consider my favorite Nicholas Sparks movie on there, which is Safe Haven, starring Josh Jamal and Julianne Hough. This one has a twist, like a very unexpected twist, and I remember watching this and being like, oh my god. And it takes place obviously in a coastal town because it's a Nicholas Sparks movie, and Julianne Hough's character just moved there, and then Josh Duhamel lives in the town and like runs a little convenience store with his daughters, but his wife has died. And so you kind of like get to watch them fall in love and then kind of become a family, and then there's a big twist at the end. But yeah, Safe Haven is so cute, so wholesome, and definitely a good little Nicholas Sparks pick. Next is an obvious one. I had to put it on here, and it's Valentine's Day. I try to watch this movie every year on Valentine's Day. I love like connecting stories movies. I think they're so fun when you just have a movie full of like a ton of famous people and all their stories connect. Valentine's Day is so cute. I think all the stories are fun, and it's like the epitome of like cheesy lovey-dovey romance movie. Of course Taylor Swift's in it, which is such a bonus, and Today Was a Fairy Tale plays at the end, and it's just so cutesy, and it makes you feel all like gushy inside. This next one is an iconic, also universally beloved film, and it is 10 Things I Hate About You. This movie is so freaking good. If you haven't seen this, what are you doing? What are you doing? It has one of the most iconic scenes in film history, which is when Heath Ledger is singing to Julia Stiles' character on the football field. It has so many iconic lines. Yeah, I could quote this movie probably back to front. It is so good, and the perfect movie for February. Okay, we're getting to the end of the list. We have 3 more. Of course, Crazy Rich Asians, because who doesn't freaking love this movie? It's so good. This movie started my love for Henry Golding. I think it is so well written and just such a fun but also emotional movie. Like, the wedding scene always makes me tear up. It is so beautifully made. Yes. And then in similar fashion, because they both start with the word crazy, we also have Crazy Stupid Love. What do I even say about this movie? Like, iconic. I feel like I keep repeating the same things for all these movies, and I guess I didn't do plot breakdowns for there too, but it's also one of these like those popular 2010s connecting stories movies. It stars an amazing cast. There's Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, Steve Carell, Julianne Moore, I think Marissa Tomei is in it, Joey King. Like, the cast is phenomenal, and it is a comedy, romance, emotional, just golden of a movie. Yeah, I'm trying to explain the plot to you, but there's so many elements, and I don't want to accidentally spoil anything if you haven't seen it. But you need to watch it. It has one of the most iconic endings ever to grace movies. Number 14 on the list before we get to honorable mentions is an 80s movie. I knew I had to put an 80s movie on here, but most of my favorite 80s movies I wouldn't put into like the category or the vibe that I'm going for this list. Like, for example, like Breakfast Club would not fit into this, and neither would like The Goonies or Karate Kid. Like, anything like that would not fit into this category. And like Ferris Bueller doesn't fit into the list, and I was like, dang, what movie should I put on here? And then I was like, oh my gosh, Dirty Dancing. How can I forget? I freaking love Dirty Dancing. It was probably one of the first movies I saw fresh out of the womb. But this movie stars the icons Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze, and Jennifer Grey's character Baby. It takes place in the 60s, and they go to this like resort for the summer. They're there from like school getting out to like Labor Day essentially, and they go to this resort. Baby has an older sister, and her dad's a doctor. They go, and Patrick Swayze's character Johnny is a dancer at the resort, so he like works at the resort, and obviously Baby is smitten with Johnny because like duh. But you know, of course Baby's dad doesn't approve, yada yada yada. And then there's a really iconic dance scene at the end. I don't want to spoil the movie for you if you have not yet been amazed by the wonders of Dirty Dancing. But pretty iconic movie, and I would say it is one of my only favorite movies that I would put into this category, because most of my favorite 80s movies are coming of age. Like, The Breakfast Club is so clearly coming of age. So is Ferris Bueller. I guess Can't Buy Me Love, though. Wait, how would I forget Can't Buy Me Love? Can't Buy Me Love is one of my favorite films of all time. But I would also put that into coming of age. I don't think I would put that into romance either. Even though, I don't know. Wait, now I'm like questioning my own genre. Hold on. No, I think Can't Buy Me Love I would not put into this category. I think it is very heavily about romance, but I also think it's very heavily about like high school stereotypes and being your true self. I don't know. Now I'm like second guessing myself, but maybe it's on the honorable mentions. Okay, we're finally in the honorable mentions after me yapping for ages. So most of these are movies that are like some of my all-time favorites, which is why I had to put them on here, because I'm like, they're my all-time favorite romance movies, but I don't sit down on Valentine's Day and want to be like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna put this movie on. It doesn't make me feel super like gushy and fun. They're more, I don't know. Let me just explain them to you. So, When Harry Met Sally. Obviously one of, not just the most iconic romance films of all time, one of the most iconic films of all time. Phenomenal movie. Incredible. Like, you know. We know When Harry Met Sally is great. I don't think it screams Valentine's Day for me. Like, I watched this movie in strictly the months of October through December. But it's also one of the best romance films of all time. I would also argue that this probably could fall under the category of like coming of age a little bit, even though they're older. But you're kind of always coming of age. But yeah, one of the best romance films of all time. Next is my 5th favorite movie of all time, and it's About Time. I watch this once a year on New Year's Day, first movie of the year. This is also a really good romance movie, but it is incredibly emotional and incredibly deep, and it's not like cutesy, let me watch a little romance movie vibe. It is more like, let me watch a romance movie and then have an existential crisis, but in a good way. The next one is my favorite film of all time. It always has been, always will be probably, and it's Titanic. Jack and Rose, one of the most iconic love stories ever, but I do have a problem categorizing this movie as just a romance movie, because obviously it's like about it's based on a real event that occurred, that real people had to go through. So it's a lot deeper than that. There's a lot more going on, a lot more significance, historical significance, and like, yeah, I feel weird putting it on this list because yes, I saw it when they had it in theaters Valentine's Day weekend for its 25th anniversary, and yes, it is one of the most iconic, beautiful love stories ever, but it's also based on a real event where, you know, people had to go through this, and a lot of the story and a lot of the film focuses on that element of the story as well, so that's why it's on the honorable mentions list. The next one is what people have deemed as the 2020 version of a 2000s golden era rom-com, and it's of course Anyone But You. If you haven't seen it, it stars Glenn Powell, Sydney Sweeney, kind of sworn enemies, kind of not, kind of enemies to lovers, and yeah, it's just a classic fun little rom-com. Could have made this list, honestly. I almost put it on there, but I was like, everyone knows about this movie, but it deserves a spot in the honorable mentions. The last one I would also kind of consider underground, and it's Letters to Juliet, starring Amanda Seyfried. Sometimes I'm just like really in the mood to watch this, and I'm like, this is such a good, fun little film. A cute little rom-com that I just eat up every time. I love a movie that takes place in Europe. I love it. It has inspired me to want to go write a letter to Juliet. Like, let's go right now. And if I was thinking straight, I would have put Can't Buy Me Love on here as well, because also in my top 15 movies, so I don't know how that completely erased from my head. I think I just don't think of that movie as a romance movie, which is probably a problem, because I think it is kind of one, but anyway.
Hey, editing Logan here. Also, I'm realizing that people might think I'm nuts for not putting Mamma Mia on this list, because I freaking love Mamma Mia and I love Mamma Mia too. But like, to me, that movie is like like if summer movie had a genre, that is it. Like, adventure summer girly pop movie. Like, to me, it's kind of like the Princess Diaries. Like, the romance part is like the last thing I'm thinking thinking about. Like, it's so, like, let's be with my friends, let's travel the world, let's find ourselves vibe. But I will say that Mamma Mia is described as a romantic comedy, so I kind of feel foolish for not putting it on this list. But, like, that is such a summer movie to me that I didn't include it. Because it's so, like, girly pop, let's travel the world. And I'm honestly, like, I kind of forgot there was a wedding. Anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. We'll just pretend that Mamma Mia doesn't exist for the purposes of this video, because I feel really dumb now. But I'm gonna stand by. Actually, I'm gonna stand by my opinion. Okay, those were, like, confusing. I'm so sorry.
But if you lasted this long through me yapping, these are 14 movies you should watch in the month of February. Yeah. Slay. I know I'll be watching them, because that's all I do with my life. But thank you so much. Happy Love Month. Give yourself some self-care, some self-love. If you had to make your own list, what would you put on it? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching.